Hello everyone and welcome back to ITEC 4242 Database Administration, week number 8. We're going to be working on module 6 this week. I believe it is 6. I'm going to go with 6 because module 5 would have been the midterm review, I believe. I don't know, I'll get the numbering straight later, but that's the important part is what we're actually going to be accomplishing this week. This week, we're going to be covering chapters 16 and 17 in the textbook. We're going to be glossing over security for the time being, and we're going to be dealing with backup and disaster recovery. We'll get back to security, but I figured this would be a nice leisurely exercise for after the midterm and before spring break. So in this exercise, we're going to be able to simulate backup strategies and understand their importance in a production environment. Rather than going over the textbook like I have been doing from week to week, I'm simply going to actually talk a little bit on my personal experience, briefly, hopefully, and we're just going to go over the exercise. I've looked over you all's feedback concerning the lectures. Some of you find it a distraction that, quite frankly, you want me to focus more on the hands-on aspect. And I can understand because I'm just going over what's in the textbook, and you all are very capable individuals that can read the textbook on your own. That does not mean that the textbook is unimportant. That means that you're responsible for covering the material in it and making sure that you understand the contents therein. Okay, so for the to kind of go over what backups and disaster recovery entail, I'm sure you all understand the idea of backing up your files. Some of you do it to thumb drive, some of you do it to an external hard drive, some of you store it off-site, whether through Google Drive or Dropbox or various other means of storing your data just in case your computer crashes or there's some sort of disaster that is unforeseen. More so, this is important to businesses and production environments because it could mean the difference between having money and not having money. Basically, for Walmart, their databases probably show all sorts of data, anywhere from data collection, which includes what part of their inventory has been sold, what do they have in stock, what sells well together, and what kind of transactions they're pulling in, how much money are they making, what do they need to do differently. All sorts of data gathering techniques they probably employ. And that's not limited to any one business. In the case of Middle Georgia State University, we have anywhere from financial aid information to parking tickets to basically just tuition and fees, where you're staying at, whether you're in a dorm, whether you're a commuter, so on and so forth. All of this is important. It's all valuable. It's all a commodity, and it's important to store and back up. Now, storing and backing up data is not a one-trick pony. You don't necessarily do one backup because one backup may become corrupted. So what do you do in this case? One, you want to back up in multiple ways. Take, for example, us. We use RMAN against our Oracle database, which does a hot backup. And a hot backup is a backup that can be performed on a live database, meaning instead of having to take it down and doing a cold backup and making it so that it's not usable to the public, we try to make sure that we have it up and available for everybody as much as possible. So we do a hot backup. And in the case of Oracle, RMAN, what it does is while people are still making transactions while it's backing up, it's transcribing it in a log, and then it kind of backs up the log along with the backup files so that if you need to restore even the content that was going on during the backup, you can. There's no downtime or disturbance for any of that. Now, not only do we do that RMAN backup, but we also use backup exec, which kind of actually uses RMAN as well, but it also, with our backup exec, it backs up the entirety of the server, anywhere down to the Oracle software, to user files, to programs, whether they're COBOL, C, Java, so on and so forth. We back up the entirety of the server. Now, on top of this, we also sync our files over to different servers. We sync it over to our test server so that we can actually test the restores to make sure that they're viable, they're working, and they do what they need to do. We also have one that goes off-site. And by off-site, I mean to one of our other campuses, because most of our backups are probably focused on Macon campus. But in the event that we have another storm that comes through Macon, we had one around 2007, 2008 that honestly we had some very beautiful trees that are gone now. Not to say that our campus isn't beautiful now, but it did a number on our systems as well as the trees, and basically like we had signs and everything else that just got completely torn apart. Well, that calls for some sort of disaster recovery. And if we lose a server on Macon campus, we need to be able to restore that. We need to be able to get our production environment back up so that we can continue doing business with you. So, now that I've kind of chattered about what the importance and how we do, oh, and that's not even covering our dump file backups too. We do dump files as well so that we can actually nitpick and get particular records. But that aside, this is just to show that there are a number of ways to back up your files to have varying degrees of recovery options so that should a disaster arise, whether files get corrupted or we literally have a fire or a tornado or some sort of act of God, so to speak, we can recover from it. Now, for this week, we're going to be doing that to a lesser extent. We're not going to be doing anything such as an automated backup. We're not going to be doing something as grand scale as a production environment, but we're going to be backing up our MySQL database. And we're going to be utilizing the export and import processes to do this. Now, before I get over there, I'm going to actually just kind of hopefully briefly go down the task list to kind of get you to understand what we're going to accomplish here. So, in lieu of just having a lab file this week, we're also going to store the dump project folder. And I'm going to have you name that ITEC 4242 underscore your last name underscore your first name underscore backup 0. It doesn't mean put last name and first name there. As funny as that might be, put your last name and your first name. And trust me, people are very literal sometimes. That's why it's in italics, as I just butcher the pronunciation of words. Take a sip of water. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to tear up our database in varying levels of degrees. We're going to delete records, we're going to delete tables, and we're going to delete the entirety of the system. But before we do all of that, back up the database. If I haven't emphasized it enough with the all caps, red text, bold, and underline features back it up. Because if you lose everything, that's not my responsibility. I can help you to by basically giving you a copy of mine, but it's not going to be 100% what you had before, or it might be more than what you had before. I don't know. But in this particular case, make sure you have your stuff backed up, because we are going to delete it all in a way that it will not come back if you don't have it backed up. Have I made this clear yet? If not, I don't know how to make this clearer. Moving on. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete the records from the orders table. And why orders over customers and products? Some people have foreign keys in the orders table to the customers and products, thus creating a dependency on those records. And for the sake of this exercise, I want to keep it simple. I don't want to have to delete foreign keys to accomplish this exercise. We're just going to test this. We're going to make sure it works. Orders is the easiest way of doing this. Now I'm going to demonstrate this with products because it's a little bit more visually stimulating, but I don't have the foreign key set up. So if you do have foreign keys in your products, you wouldn't be able to accomplish this. So we're doing it with orders. So what you do, you delete the records and you show they're deleted with a screenshot. Do before and after, do whatever you need to, make sure you show your work. Then you restore the deleted record. Show that you've restored it. And I'm going to go over a nifty little way that I want you to do it, so make sure you pay attention when I get to the application side of this. We're going to drop the orders table, restore it. Again, show all of this with screenshots. Make sure that I know that you've done all of this. Restore the database. Restore the orders table. Drop the database. We're going to drop it in its entirety. It's going to be gone, obliterated, destroyed, erased. It's going to be gonzo. So again, if I haven't made this clear yet, back up the database fully. All right. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But make sure you do it. You may want to follow along in the video when you do it, when I go over it. But we're going to restore the database and all of its contents. And I stress the all part of this because we're going to want to restore tables. We're going to want to restore triggers. We're going to want to restore functions and procedures. And procedures and functions are a funny thing with this backup because it's a little different than what I have been dealing with as far as backups on MySQL. There are multiple ways of backing up on MySQL, and I'm only going to go over one way because the other way is actually very, very simple, very one-dimensional, and you could figure it out on your own. But we're gonna do a little bit more micromanaged backup and restore procedures. Now, when you are done with the lab assignment, make sure you have your screenshots in your lab document. I don't really care about your code this time. Now, I do want you to see the deletes and selects and everything else, but you can have those in screenshot form this time. I emphasize this time because I normally want your code, but I just simply want to see that you have performed this and you performed it correctly. So put your screenshots into a lab document, make sure they're labeled so that I understand what the significance is. And then I want your backup file that we created up here, which is a complete folder. and I want you to zip it up. We're going to zip it up into a named convention file along with the lab document. It's all going to be in one zip file, and you're going to submit it to the Dropbox. Hopefully I'm clear. If I'm not, I am always available for emails, going to the discussion Q&A, ask questions. That's how we learn. This is a course. It's not a do-it-yourselfer. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at MySQL. All right, now we are in MySQL Workbench, and we're using the ITEC 4242_week1 database. Now, if we look at the products table, it is there in all of its wonderful glory. And you might notice something a little bit different. I'm actually selecting the now function along with all of the contents of the database. Now, this does not add the now column to the products database as demonstrated by this. There's no now column. It's just I'm selecting the now function along with the products. Now, I want you to be able to demonstrate the contents are gone with the now function. And why do I want to stress this? Okay, because I want you to demonstrate that you've actually done all of this in the proper order, meaning that it will show your timestamps at the point when you have done certain aspects. For example, when you delete from the products table, I don't want you deleting everything. I'm going to, for this particular exercise, but I want you to delete maybe 1 or 2 records. Make sure you use a where clause or predicate or whatever you want to call it, but use a where statement to delete maybe 1 or 2, and then show the products table along with now so that you show everything in its proper order. So now that I've shown that products exists in all of its glory, I'm going to delete everything. Everything's gone. We have lost everything. Looking at the products table, there's nothing to even know about. There's no product IDs, there's no descriptions, there's no quantities. Whatever am I going to do? Well, I'm going to import. And if I'm doing this too fast, this is merely a demonstration. I will show you how to do this here in a little bit. But for the sake of argument, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. We're going to import products. Bam. We select, and everything is back. Hallelujah. Take a screenshot. Not right now, but when you do the exercise. So now that everything is back, this would be the first part of the exercise. But I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to show you how to do this yourself. Okay, so what do? We go up to the server menu at the very top of the screen, and we're going to go down to export. We're going to go down to data export. We hit data export as hard as we can. Not really, just click it. It's a simple click. Make sure you check the ITEC 4242_week1 database, or schema in this particular case. Same difference when it comes to MySQL. We're going to do dump structure and data. That should be a default, so you shouldn't have to change anything. And again, you shouldn't really have to change anything in here. But right here is where you establish the folder name for your dump project folder. As we kind of discussed with the Word document, make sure you change this to ITEC 4242 underscore last name underscore first name underscore backup 0. And make sure you include the create schema. And then you do a start export. And bam, your database is exported and safe from deletion. Now, let's go ahead. Boom, everything's gone again. Showing you for the second time, I've deleted the product's records. Now that they have disappeared, we're going to play Magician and we're going to bring them back all over again. So we go in here and we go to the particular dump file that we created. Now, I've already created an ITEC 4242 underscore backup 0. This is the one we just created, or I just created, but I'm going to use this one because for the sake of consistency of ITEC 4242 and saying that over and over again, because that's not repetitious at all, we're going to hit OK. And it should show you down here a nice list of objects that you can restore. Now, we don't want to do anything to the customers and the products tables. I mean, the customers and the orders table. Because simply put, I'm working with a products table. And let's say I inserted content into the customers table. I don't want to necessarily overwrite it. And given this method of import and restoring, it will overwrite that. And I will demonstrate there in a second. But we import and we select everything and bam, again, we have magically made this appear as if nothing happened. This delete, it's gone, never happened. Okay, so what happens if we insert a record? We insert a record into products. We show that there is a product ID of number 11 called a mask. There's 20 of them, and we're looking at it right now. What happens if I do this import again? We select everything. It is gone. It is as if it didn't exist. This is one of the basically downsides to restoration. You don't necessarily get everything back in 100% satisfaction. You can restore up to a point, and you want to try to restore as close as you possibly can. But in this particular scenario, let's say if somehow our database got completely wiped and I were to restore, I still did not get product ID number 11 back. Now, as I kind of went over with our systems, we do what is archive logging so that if there are transactions that occur throughout the day, we still get those to a certain extent if they make it into an archive log file. If they never make it to archive logging, then we would lose those. There's really no other way around it. You try to do your best when you're backing things up. So now that that no longer exists, what happens when we completely drop the products table altogether? Now, if we look, there are only 2 tables in this database, and you may be wondering, wait, what's this query right here? We're going to go over this in more detail in a later exercise, but for right now, I'm using it to show purposes. You can actually use this query for your lab document and take a screenshot that orders table no longer exists in your particular case. In mine, it's products. But you can also go over here to schemas, make sure you refresh, and show that it doesn't exist. I will accept either one so long as you show in some manner that the table no longer exists. So now that the table is gone, we go back over here, and you want to make sure that you get dump structure and data. Because if it's data, I think it still technically works because it fills in the gap for you, but whatever the case may be, structure should only restore the table itself and not the data within. But we're doing dump structure and data. So we import and we take a look at the products table. And bam, we're back again. And if we look at this particular query, it is back in existence. So now that that's out of the way, and actually I'm going to bring all of this back because I'm going to copy that, but we're going to ignore it for now. Okay, so what happens when we delete something like a trigger? Well, a trigger in MySQL appears to be part of a table. So restoring a table will essentially bring back your triggers. Now, this may be a little bit dangerous because, as we said before, or I said before, you're not saying anything. Well, you may be saying something, but that's on your side of the video, and I don't know what it is. But what I'm saying is that it's going to overwrite your table. So you may want to store your code, your SQL code, in a different format so that you don't disturb the data. But what we're going to do, for the sake of experimentation, we're going to restore the orders table. And we're going to show the gobbledygook trigger is back in all of its wonder and splendor. But again, I emphasize, this is not a good backup strategy or restoration strategy because it will overwrite the table. And if there were any records added, they are obliterated. Or any updates that have been made, they are obliterated. All right, so now that we have everything back again, let's just casually delete everything. Everything is gone. We look over here, we try to query from it, it is gone. There is no database selected. We try to use it, gives us an error. We don't know what this database is. This is one of those times where I will actually allow a screenshot of the action output to demonstrate that the database is dead. It no longer exists. It is gone into the ether, and the ether didn't want it either. It doesn't exist. And the only means of restoring it is through our restoration process. But with the way we're doing it, with the dump project folder, the dump project folder is a little bit finicky in my opinion. Because if we were to go ahead and do this, it's going to give us some errors. Because it has nothing to basically dump the files into. So in order to actually recreate things, we're going to have to recreate the database through the conventional means. So now that it exists, everything's right in the world, right? Nope, we still don't have any tables. We can use the database all we want, but the table doesn't exist. So what do? We go back and we do the same thing we've done before. We start, we import, bam, and everything is right in the world, right? Well, not really, because if we use this nice little query here, there's no routines. Now, What's a routine? Well, this is a nice little term that MySQL uses to describe stored procedures and functions. And all of those functions, all of those procedures that we created in previous labs, they're gone. They're deleted. They're done. So what do? I mean, we've restored the database. We've restored the tables. They all exist again, as seen right here. The triggers should be back. If we look, we open this up, and we see that the triggers are back. But how do we recover the functions and the procedures? Well, we're going to have to do a little bit of digging. We're going to have to go down to this option, the import from self-contained file. And we're going to have to choose the folder, and we're going to, in the folder that you create, there should be a routines.sql file. And what we're going to do is we're going to open it, and we're going to start an import. Now, what happens when we look at it? We have our functions and procedures back. This is what I mean when I say in the document, make sure everything has been restored. Make sure all of it has been recovered. Now, if you had some difficulties creating procedures and functions and everything else, I've shown example videos of how to create these. I highly suggest and maybe even demand that you go ahead and create those objects, or at least one of them, to demonstrate that this stuff is back. Make sure you select this stuff before you drop the database to show what you were losing. Drop the database, recreate it as I've shown in this video. Restore not only the tables, the triggers, and all of the nice pretty little records, but make sure you restore the routines and show me that you've restored them. And that's it. That's it for this exercise. And hopefully we can get through it nice and easy. If you have any questions, make sure to ask. Whatever means necessary, make sure you get me emails, get me I'll accept D2L despite what I said in the syllabus. I'll accept those now. I highly encourage you to talk to me if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time. Make sure you get help. I mean, if you don't even want to deal with me, let's say you're disgusted with me for some odd reason, I don't know. Talk with your classmates. Talk with somebody. Get the help that you need. Do some research. But make sure you understand this material. Have a nice week, and peace out.